Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's another Friday. Thank God it's Friday. It's our time of hanging out and enjoying the wisdom of God on relationships. Everything relationships is on the table, whether it's you are single, whether you're married, relationships at work, relationships at play, relationships in church. We discuss relationships on Fridays. I am Dr. Chucks Go here, and it is my pleasure to have you join us once again for another edition of Thank God It's Friday. Tonight, we have a very special couple all the way from the southwest part of Nigeria, a city called Akure. They are in Johannesburg for a holiday, and I thought to grab them. These are people that I've known for a long time. And they are both medical doctors. The man is a medical doctor. His wife is a medical doctor. And they are both pastors. They pastor a great church in the city of Akure. The church is called the Rest House Christian Center. The Rest House Christian Center, that's the name of their ministry. And they are doing an amazing work there. I have been at their church last year, and what an amazing work they're doing there. And it's our joy to have them in the studio. I'm going to bring them on just now. But before I do, for those who are new to Thank God It's Friday, well, let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Chucks Go here once again, and I am the lead pastor at Resurrection Life Church here in Johannesburg, South Africa. I lead the church with my wife, Pastor Tony Ugo here, and we co-host Thank God It's Friday. We are passionate about relationships. It's one of the areas that God has gifted us and anointed us, and we have been at it for many, many years, helping couples, helping singles. We organize couples seminars, we organize couples workshops, we organize marriage retreats, we organize marriage interventions for couples who are going through things in their marriage and they need intervention, counseling. We organize all of that. We do premarital counseling. We help couples prepare them for marriage. We do things for single people. We do the Single Ladies Boot Camp. We do Singles Ignite seminars for both men and women. We are all about relationships, and we teach the wisdom of God on relationship. That's why we have Thank God It's Friday, to help you navigate that space of relationships. So this is who we are, and we look forward to great, great, great times in the future as I tell you what we have for you for 2024. I want to tell you a little bit of good news and exciting things that we have in store for you as we kick off Thank God It's Friday in 2024. We are going to be having on-site Thank God It's Friday, on-site at our new venue, Chapel at NTC 195 College Road in Modersdrift here in Johannesburg. It's basically driving up Bears Nadia towards the end of Bears Nadia. We turn right into College Road, and that's where we are going to be having Thank God It's Friday from the 5th of April, immediately after Easter. Thank God It's Friday will happen live on a Friday evening at 7 p.m. I want to invite you and ask you to invite your friends. We're going to hang out. We're going to get wisdom on relationships. We're going to get music, and we're going to get other varieties that we have stirred up for you. So as we prepare for that, but let's get back to tonight's conversation. It's Love Through the Ages. It's Love Through the Ages. Love Through the Ages is an edition of Thank God It's Friday where we bring couples who've been married for a while, at least 20 years, to come and share their story, tell us, their journey, what they have learned, what they have gone through, what they have done to, overcome the challenges in their journey. It's just a time of hearing people's testimony and learning from their stories, and we can ask them questions. So I want you to get ready tonight. The couple that we have in the studio here tonight, they have been married for 21 years. They are married on 21 this month, actually. So it's a blessing and a privilege to have them on the show tonight to tell us their story. Now, I want to bring on Dr. Stanley Orji and his wife, Dr. Eloho Orji. You are welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pastor, for having us. It's good to be here.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you for having us also.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, tonight we have a beautiful couple here. Well, let me throw it to them. Tell us, how long have you been married, and how has the journey been so far?
We'll be, okay, we were 21 years on April 8th.
Oh, March.
March 8th, I beg your pardon. She's the one that remembers.
Wow, 21 years.
Yes.
March 8th.
March 8th.
That's like a few days ago.
Yeah, we just celebrated our
Awesome.
21st anniversary.
This is really, really beautiful. 21 years of love.
Yes.
21 years of enjoyment or
Yes.
enjoyment.
No, it's enjoyment. It's enjoyment.
Enjoyment. All right, tell us your story. How did you guys meet? How long did you know each other before you said I do? Let's start from there.
Okay, it's a very long story, so I guess I will just tell the story, and women remember better. She will fill in the blanks. I think that's how maybe it will work better that way. Okay, so we're in medical school together, and she was my junior by about 4 years. Okay, she was my junior by about 4 years, and I remember the first time I saw her, she was in first year. If I remember correctly, I just became a Christian, and I was in my 4th year, I think. I just became a Christian, and I joined the medical students fellowship for this outreach in one village. And I remember just seeing her, I remember just seeing her during one of the programs. I still remember what she was wearing, this blue patterned,
that picture has not left.
It's adjusted there, this blue
After
patterned.
how many years? That's 20.
No, this
years.
was actually, no, it's more than 20, it's more than 25, about 26 years, yes.
Oh, wow.
About 26 years. So I just saw her, and I just remember thinking to myself, this girl is pretty, but that was all, okay? That was all. And after that, a few more years later, I remember where I met her again. That was in the College of Medicine building. We didn't meet. I just saw her again. I remember exactly what she was wearing. She was wearing a waistcoat with this flare skirt. I remember a waistcoat with gold patterns on the chest. Again, I think our eyes met, and she smiled. She has this smile. She smiled, and she smiled. And again, I felt like, okay, but I wasn't thinking of getting married. Okay, and well, fast forward to after I had graduated, finished with my internship, and we became friends, not just her, with a few more, some other girls in her set.
Okay.
And I remember coming to the hospital, and I went to their lecture hall. As at this time, I was already a doctor. And, they saw me and all came down to speak with me. And I was just teasing them, all of you girls have forgotten me. And I remember she just spoke up and said, where are you? I would want to come and see you. I want to come and see you. And I said, no, you're not serious. You're not going to come. But when I told her where I was working then, temporarily, and this, I think it was a Tuesday, the nurses came to tell me that there's someone that wants to see me. I didn't know who he was. I told them, tell the person to come in. And I remember she just knocked and opened the door, and I just turned to see who it was. Once I just saw her, I remember hearing it very clearly. God said, this is your wife. And I just went, thank you, Jesus. Because I had no plans. Marriage wasn't, but I just knew, so our marriage didn't follow the regular pattern where you see somebody, you begin to desire, you begin to pray. I didn't have to pray at all. So that's essentially it for me.
Okay, that's your side of the story. I want to hear your side. We want to hear your side of the story.
Okay, thank you once again for having us on this program. For me, as a young girl, I just felt that I should marry right, and I just, because I had a relationship with God, and I just felt my marriage should bless God, bless the body of Christ, and I wanted a good marriage. So I've been attending a lot of marriage seminars by Donald Luzzi and some others. And so for me, I was big on having a good family life. And so I started praying about family as well. And so
So you started praying about it long before you met him?
From secondary school?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then I read this book, Tortured for Christ, and after reading that book, I decided to read. Then I saw the book by the wife, Sabina Wumbad, the pastor's wife, and I read that book. And as I was reading that book, I just had a knowing that I was supposed to be a pastor's wife.
Oh, wow.
So with my relationship with God, so I gravitated towards
Pastors.
guys that were in ministry and all of that. So, but then I was praying, and I just had this thing in me that when the person comes, I will know. And the reason why I said so, I will know, because God would have told me before that time and all of that. So I entered school, and I told God something, that I was going to serve him, but that he was going to make me pass, have a good grade and all of that. So I was serving him. So that was why in year 1, I went for the mission conference. Most of my friends didn't go, because they felt, we just entered year 1, we need to read our books. But I told God,
that was why I saw you.
Okay. I told God I was going to serve you, doesn't matter what. And so that was how I went. I think I was the only year 1 that went for that conference.
Wow.
Because we just entered school. But I just told God that I'm up for you and all of that. That was where I met him for the first time. But of course,
did you see me?
We met, we sat down together.
Really?
Because after the conference,
Oh, yeah.
we took this picture. After the
Really?
the mission conference, the bus that was to carry us didn't come on time.
I forgot
So
that
we sat down together, we gisted a bit.
I don't remember
And
that
of
part.
course, because of the way the medical school ran, then I was in year 1, he was in year 4. There was no way we could have met except in that conference, because he was in town. I was in the university and all of that. So that was the first time I met him. But then fast forward, when he was doing his house job, because I had met him.
Can I just put something there? Around that, I don't remember this part of our talking, but there's something I remember. Okay, maybe this came out of that. So in the bus that we took.
Because after then we entered the bus.
In the bus that we took home, because I wasn't a regular Christian. You know what I mean by a regular Christian? I was an unbeliever for quite a while. I just got born again, maybe a year or less. So they were still a bit suspicious of me. And I've always been a very free person. It didn't matter the environment I was. So I remember we entered this bus, and I was sitting directly behind her. She used to have very long hair those days. So when the bus was, on that highway, the windows were down, her hair was flying. So her hair was in my face. So I remember I just leaned forward. I said, "Your hair is tickling me." And she just smiled and laughed, This was inside the part. So that part also stuck. I remember that. I remember that part.
Interesting details. Me, I have my questions. So.
Okay, no problem. So as I was saying, so when he had finished, he was doing his house job, and then I was in part 5. So we're doing our clinicals. So, I have these friends, they are Igbo, 3 of them. And so when they say they are hungry, I say, I know where you can eat. I have friends. I'll take them to his room before he comes to eat all his food.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I went through for 1 year.
We'll go to his room. When we're tired, we'll go there and lie down and sleep and all of that.
And eat up everything in
so
my fridge.
for me, I just was introducing my Igbo friends to him that, of course, you can have any one of them for me.
Really?
Yes.
Destiny has taken here.
So, and then he had this magazine that he was writing on.
I used to publish a magazine for young people those days.
Young couples, and then couples come to tell their stories and all of that. So one of the days I came to his room, he was lying down, and he just, I think, received some new copies.
So at this time he was a doctor?
He was a doctor.
Yes,
I was a
fresh
student.
doctor. Yeah,
Yeah, I was in part 5.
Okay.
So he just brought his magazine from the publisher's place. And so it was on the table. I just took one. I was looking at it. And he was telling me that, you're reading my magazine. You're not going to buy. I said, who's going to buy your magazine? I was just joking. And as I was reading that magazine, I heard a voice so clearly behind me that this is your husband.
Oh, wow.
I said, God forbid. And I dropped the magazine and left the room. The reason why I said, because it's not that because he's not a good person, no. Because at home, my parents had told us that we should not marry an Igbo man.
Igbo people?
Yes. And my dad had
It was a serious issue.
My dad had some incidences at workplace. So somehow he just had this
negative
bias against them,
Igbos.
Igbos. So he had told us, nobody.
How many girls?
We are 5 in our house.
5 girls.
5 girls?
Yes.
How many boys?
just 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
At the first and the last.
So girls in between.
In between.
Yeah, in
5
between.
girls in
So
between.
he had told us that nobody brings an Igbo man to this house.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I was my dad's beloved. He loved me so much. And my dad was this strict man and disciplinarian, but I was the only one that can talk.
Where's your dad now?
Okay, he's in Warri now.
Oh, he's still alive?
Retired.
Yes,
Yes,
retired.
yes, over 80 years.
Oh, wow.
And all over. So
Retired life.
I had carried that on my head that whatever you are doing, just be clear-minded, no Igbo man. So when I heard that voice behind me, I said, God, it can't be possible. So I just left, you know, and all of that. But then, because like I said, I had this strong relationship with God at that tender age, he speaks to me. And I read Kenneth Hagin's book. There's this book I read, Following God's Plans for Your Life by Kenneth Hagin. And as I read the book, every page, all the pages of this book spoke to me that God was saying, this is what I want for you. That Igbo man, that is the one I want you to marry. And my God, me and I was going back and forth with God for more than a month on that. And afterwards, I went for a conference, Wind and Fire conference in Port Harcourt. And God...
Wind and Fire?
Yes.
Okay.
And God told me that this is what I want you to do. And I told God, I said, you know that I had already told you that. The day somebody will ask me, I should know, one. And I'm going to say yes on that day and all of that. So my friends, they went for, because it was Easter period, they went for Easter break. I didn't go. I was just at home, at school, fighting with God on this issue. So, but he went for service. After the orientation, he came back and asked me. And of course, I had to give him an answer because I already know the answer. God has already told me. And when he asked me, I said yes immediately. And he was like, do you know what I'm asking?
She didn't.
Capture it very
because
well.
Yes, you didn't capture it. So these were the events from my end that led to that.
Okay.
So I had, as I said, God said, this is your wife. I had about a month before I left Port Harcourt to go for the national service for 1 year. So when God told me that, it was very clear. It wasn't part of my plans. Indeed, getting married was a relationship wasn't even part of my plans because I did a lot of things around relationships. So I had a lot of females in my circle. You know, for a lot of people, it was a surprise that, you know, the things that happen, you and this person, I just wasn't there, you know. Okay. So when God said that to me, like I always teach people, because we also do a lot of relationship and family stuff. You don't go and tell a girl that God said that you're my wife. I don't think that's romantic. So I began to do the man thing. You understand? Began to pay her a lot of attention. You know, I would come around, take her for walks. You know, those Isaac Boro Park walks. You know, just take her. I remember the first gift I bought her was this leather bangle. You remember that leather bangle? You know, we just began to do all of that. I did a lot of talking. You know, and that took like 10 days or so before I now was mobilized for service. And while I was in service, that was before GSM became popular. The only way I could communicate, because you know it was a camp, while I was in the camp for about 3 weeks, the only way I could communicate was by letters. So I wrote these love letters, you know, 3 of them, I remember, within that 3 weeks.
How did you send it?
I posted them.
Oh, okay.
And then if he had opportunity of anybody coming?
Yes, anybody that was coming, going to that, I just sent the letters, and she still has those letters even today, 26 years later.
Wow.
Anytime I hurt her, I've not hurt her for a long time, but but anytime I hurt her, I enter the bedroom and see those letters. They still look as new as they were when I wrote them, because in those letters I poured out. You know, there was a time a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I took those letters and I read them. They were so prophetic. It's amazing the things I wrote in those letters.
Interesting.
I will be like, you remember?
I wish you had copies of them.
I will be like, where? I said, where did all this? Look, I mean, from this time to when I eventually got called to ministry, which is another story, was almost 10 years. But I spoke everything concerning this story.
The ministry and everything.
I spoke it. I spoke it in those 3. I mean, they were real love letters. They are not things you give to somebody to read. But I spoke. I spoke all of those things.
It was a love letter, and then he was like telling me what God was to do in his life and all of that.
But the things I didn't know then. So when I read the letter, I was like, how? Because these letters basically described everything we are into now. It's amazing.
Because, you know, when he asked me, I told him that God has already told me I was going to marry a pastor, but you are not a pastor, but I'm convinced that this is what God wants me to do.
Yes. Because, you know, the way she responded when I asked her, because there were, again, after youth service camp, after the camp, I went back to Port Harcourt just for about a week or two to get ready and then eventually go back. And I went to see my pastor, and I was just talking with her about, I met this person, and she was like, do I know the person? I said, no. She said, have you asked her? I said, no, it's not a problem. When I ask her, she will say yes. Because of the way I am with her, she said, there you go. Don't come to my office to cry when the person, you know, they will say the person nailed you those days. You know, I said, Pastor, because I didn't intend to tell her. I didn't intend to ask her on that particular trip. I intended after a year, after service, but then we would have had time to. Okay. But when Pastor said that, I said, Pastor, no, since you said this, I'm going to go and ask her now. And I just went straight to her hostel, and she was still in, she hadn't left for the hospital. So I just went in there, and I remember sitting on her bed, and we were just bantering, and I just said, I want to marry you. And she just said, okay. And I was now taken aback. I said, no, did you hear what I said? I said, did you hear what I said? She said, you said you want to marry me. I said, yes. She said, and I said, okay. I said, no. If I say I want to marry you now, you should like pray about it, think about it. She said, no, there's nothing to think about that. 3 days ago that she knew that I am her husband and that she was just waiting for me to ask. I was a bit, she said, the only problem is that you are not a pastor. And God had told me when I was in secondary school that I am going to be a pastor's wife. And the truth is that at that time, there was, look, at that time, if you gave me a microphone, I would not preach, because that wasn't what I wanted at all. But she said that, but she knows that 3 days ago, this was the instruction, and that she was going with that instruction. So that's how we started. Just basically started a courtship. Okay. As it were, we just left not knowing where we were going.
So this must have been year 2000?
This was, yes, 99, 2000, yeah.
99, 2000, just before I finished medical school.
Just before she graduated.
You know, he talked about taking me on a walk. And then, for me, it was like he was giving his manifestos, what he was going to do. And I was like, okay, he's an interesting person. At least he was talking about how he was going to take care of his wife and all of that. And I'm like, okay, that's good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. All right. So I want to take you back a little bit. We have a generation of people who don't understand this part of God told me. People don't even know how to hear the voice of God regarding relationship. So people are using the approach of, let's try it.
How I feel about it.
Let's see how it goes, if it works, and then we take it from there. What advice do you have? I'm hearing a story here. You heard from God a long time ago. You filed it. You heard from God independently a long time ago. You filed it. And when the time was ripe, things were communicated, things were accepted. What do you say to young people who are trying to go into relationship without hearing from God? How important is it to hear from God? Let's start from her.
Okay. Hearing from God for us as Christians is key, is very vital. And I always tell women, young ladies, that you don't start hearing from God about relationship.
Correct.
You must hear from God for little things.
Yes.
Everyday life. Where do I go to serve? Should I pass this road? Should I do this? Because it becomes part of you. So it's hearing God becomes very easy. Like I told you that I told God that I want to go through this medical school seamlessly, and I'm going to serve you. It's just started from that. I remember there was a time I was in a program, and then I was on a scholarship, and God told me to give my money as an offering. I was crying, literally crying, and you know, God saw me through school. You know, God was speaking to me through everyday life, you know, throughout that time. So hearing from God for relationship was just easy. So like I want
part of hearing.
Yes, so it becomes an everyday life. That's the kind of way we roll with God at that time.
Pastor, tell us.
No, absolutely, I agree with her. God is not going to start speaking to you because you want to get married. I mean, it's just like you don't have a relationship with somebody and one day you just show up, say, please, could you advise me? And the person say, do I know you? You know? So, I mean, you have to have been somebody who has a relationship. Relationship is key. Because like I always like to illustrate, I mean, I know you, I've known you for a while. I don't have to be looking at you to know it's you that is speaking. Okay. You know, that's the principle. So, I mean, God, we don't see God. So there has to be some kind of familiarity with God that makes it easy for you to know he's speaking. I mean, if you've never met somebody before, the person can be shouting. Yeah, you know somebody is shouting, but you don't know who is shouting. Yes. All right. So I think it's something that comes with you know, the Bible talks about those who by reason of use have exercised their senses. Yeah. So I think what happens is that as you walk with God, you exercise your senses. So when it comes to, so relationship, marriage just becomes one of the things, because even after that happens, God is still going to keep speaking to you about other things that will even sustain the marriage. So it's not just about getting married. So my advice to young people is that you need to first of all build a relationship with God, which of course starts from, you know, giving your life to Christ, and after that, even more importantly, is to get planted, you know, in a place where you are actually taught God's word, because that's usually
the church you're talking
yes,
about.
A church. That's usually the missing element. So people get born again and they are looking for emotional experiences sometimes, which is what now determines where they go. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with music. There's nothing wrong with, you know, ambience. But, I mean, the thing you're looking for is the word so that you can grow. Because it's when you grow, you are able to think and act like an adult. So you can be born again if you're not in a place where you have been groomed with the milk of God's word. You will still essentially be acting like a child, and you're not likely to make right choices.
Okay. So we're going to round up this session very, very soon, but I want to push the question. So when you heard from God, but what was on ground was not matching, for you, God told you you're going to marry a pastor, and you were clear on that. But here is the guy, he's not a pastor. He's a doctor, but he's not a pastor at that time. How did you reconcile that within yourself to still go ahead, knowing that you already had, you know, prior instruction about a pastor, but the guy in front of you is not a pastor at that time, or was not a pastor. So how did you go ahead?
For me, it was the inner weakness, the peace.
Okay.
When I thought of it, because actually I told God that when I get to year 5, I want to know the person. And exactly when I got to year 5, there were like 3 persons. They were all Christians. In fact, one of them was his friend, because he was talking about me. And the person, he's like, he was telling the person, this lady is going to make some guy a good wife.
I remember that.
And the guy heard it and immediately came to ask me. He was a Christian. He was in our circle, good brother,
still our friend,
born again. I told him that you're not the one, because the inner weakness was not there. The peace was not there. There was another of my friends too that was a Christian too. As soon as I got to year 5, he came to ask me. I said, no, you're not the one. But when it came to him, there was this peace. Even though I knew there was going to be trouble in my family because of that decision, but there was this inner weakness. And the Bible says that the Spirit of God bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God. When it comes to him, there's this peace. There's this agreement in the spirit that this is the right thing to do.
Okay.
And I just had to go with that.
So how did you deal with the resistance from your dad? This guy is an Igbo guy. How did you negotiate?
5 years resistance.
It was a 5 years battle.
Wow, 5 years.
Yes.
That's a long story.
Oh, yes. No, we need to hear that story. We need to hear that story.
Even my younger sister had to get married before me, even though I started a relationship before her.
Oh,
it
wow.
It was that bad.
So your dad refused to budge?
It was hard.
It was hard because, especially because I was like his beloved child.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was close to him. So it was like, everybody was like, if there was somebody that was going to do this, it's not you. But then, because I love God,
okay.
and I heard from God, and I've heard God in other ways and in other things. So I wasn't going to refuse him on this, because I had this relationship. So it was, but I just waited for God, and I allowed God to sort it out, though it took time
Took time.
It took time.
5 years. 5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
It took 5
So
years.
what was happening in those 5 years? What were you praying? What were you thinking?
I was praying, living my life, because as a doctor, young doctor, just finished school, so many things. You do your house job, go and do your youth service, and so I was just doing
But you
all
were
of
already in the relationship, so the
Yes,
relationship
I
was
was.
on.
Yeah.
Only that the fact daddy was
Yes.
not agreeing.
it. Was
Not just daddy, I mean the whole family. Nobody was.
So I had to, negotiate, advocate, look for those ones that could speak on my behalf, and
Like who? Like your
like my
sisters?
uncle. No, my uncle.
No, the uncle. The
My
siblings
cousin.
were.
My mom's cousin, we call him my uncle. He was the one that really helped. And
That was a man that he was on my side from day one.
Oh wow.
He was just there,
Okay.
Brother Charles. He was there, and then he would always.
I hope you gave him an offering.
yes.
No, he's still my big bros now. Whenever I go that way, I always do the traditional thing. Go and give him a bottle of wine.
Wow,
Because
okay,
he was our strategic insider. There's something
All right.
we
Yes,
call
I
in
understand
in church a strategic insider.
yes.
God will always plant one for you.
Somebody, yeah.
So he was just there. He took the shots on our behalf, and then he would repackage it and tell me, say I should do this and like this.
Okay.
But that it was still hard. I mean, 5 years. 5 years was a
and
long
then
time.
coming from a different culture, right there.
But again, let me say that there's something about when God has spoken to you. Because the truth is that if God had not spoken to us, it's difficult to even begin to explain the pressure to somebody. It was hard. It was hard. But I just because God had spoken to me, all the pressures that came, I just absorbed them and just kept my eyes on the ball, and a lot of things happened. And as I said, there's so much to say, and I don't think we'll have enough time.
Okay, as we round up, how did daddy say yes eventually?
That's my story. That's not her story. That's my story. It's my story. It's not hers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us.
But I don't know whether I can do that in the time we have.
No, just do it.
Okay, all right. So the younger sister, she said, we actually just had, because he was getting married to somebody from their part of the country, and guy was doing well, was working with an oil major then. And so he was like, everybody was happy. So we told them, people should go ahead and get married because we're having this issue. There were other issues that also had to do with wedding venue that I just brought all of them to the fore. So I was very clear about what I wanted. So the day of their traditional marriage, I traveled uninvited because nobody wanted me around. But I still went. I went to the family house, and I remember going in there, and it's a big family because a lot of people were now married and they had children. They came with their spouses, so it was a full house. But everybody knew about this story, so I was there, and nobody wanted to be said to be the person that encouraged me. So I came into the premises, and I remember there was a bench by the fence. I just went there and sat down. There was a lot of activities going. I just sat there. I just sat, just watching. Nobody came to say hello to me. I just sat there. But I think somewhere along the line, the dad, being the father of the house, began to feel a bit funny. That is not right. Because I traveled like 7 hours. So the man came and sat with me for a few minutes and asked me, so how are you? I said, I'm fine. He said, how is Korea? I said, I'm fine, sir. It's good. He said, how is your practice? I said, I'm fine. He just greeted me traditionally, though, and he went away. I just sat there. Looked very happy. Me, I just looked very happy because I knew what was coming and I had braced myself. So in the night, I'm sure it must have been an awkward situation for the old man. So he now called everybody. This was late in the night, like 11 p.m. Called everybody. Said, this Stanley and Elaw's issue, we have to solve it tonight.
Oh, wow.
So he called everybody, mom, dad, everybody. They all sat around. And then
with you?
With me, I was in the hot seat. Okay. If it was possible to discourage me, that was the day they wanted to. We're in the 5th year. I said, we're in the 5th year of this project. I say, and there are only 2 things. I was saying this in the presence of the entire family. I said, there are only 2 things that will make me not to marry this girl. I said, because I have opened my mouth to tell her I'm going to marry her. And that there are only 2 things that will make me not to marry her. Number 1, if she changes her mind, in which case I'll be free. And number 2 is if one of us dies. But that if none of this happens, that I will wait.
That is a very serious.
Wait, I said, if none of this happens, I will wait another 5 years.
Wow.
That I will marry her.
Are you serious?
When I said that, the kids ended it. They just, in fact, one of the in-law, the older in-law, just I mean, everybody was just discomfited.
Oh, wow.
It was like,
Wow.
so that night, just around this, that night, you know, as everybody prepared to go to, the father just built another block of flats somewhere, which was empty. It hadn't been rented out, and the house was full. So he said, who will go with me? Who are those who will go with me to go and sleep in the new house? They had put mattresses there. So he said, Stanley, let's go. That's the dad now. So one or two other persons, we all went there. Went, freshened up and went to bed. And around 2 a.m., I just felt somebody tapping me. I opened my eyes, it was the dad.
Wow.
And I woke up, you know, like, morning. I said, morning, sir. And he said, Stanley, we have offended you.
Wow.
He said, we have offended you. If you know my father-in-law, he's a pretty, I don't know how to describe him. He's an emotional person. You know, he's a worry person, so he talks, but I know he's a very soft. So he said, we have offended you. So I want you to make me just one promise. That you will not keep all these things that have happened in your heart. He said, just give me 2 months. There's a way I like to be involved in my children's wedding. So let me be done with Elo's wedding. That's the name of the younger sister. Let me be done with them so that I can get ready so that you people can have your wedding.
Wow.
So basically, that's what rounded it off.
Wow, that's amazing.
But I always tell
you know, when you hear that kind of resonates, and you know, for me, having worked with couples over the years, it's one of the things that I look for. A conviction.
A conviction, yeah.
A resoluteness that
Absolutely.
this is what
Absolutely important.
Because that conviction will keep you even
When
in the
when there's
future,
trouble.
when things
Come
are not
against
working
you.
well.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
I like to hear it. So when I start premarital counseling, for instance, I want to hear conviction. Are you sure you are supposed to be doing
Absolutely
this?
important.
So I can understand it when you said it. You know, this is it. So I can understand how the people read it, because this is what you need to make a marriage work. That conviction.
Yeah.
This is my person. If you want to kill me, but this is it.
No, but the truth is of the matter is that, I mean, there is no parent. Giving out a son, taking a wife is different from giving out a daughter in marriage.
that's
The
right.
dynamics are completely different.
That's right.
There's a lot of anxiety. You're giving
Yeah.
this young lady out, she's going to a new family.
Especially if it's a transcultural.
Yes.
Transcultural. You don't really know what to expect. So I was talking with my friend yesterday, the couple we're with. I told them that, look, parents, their position is usually legitimate. So don't just brush them aside.
That's
I mean,
right.
they have your back. They are just trying to do the best for you. So, but because that conviction was there, okay, and when I said it, I think in a sense it reassured the dad.
Yes.
I think that was what
Any
happened.
father wants to hear
Any father wants to hear that.
Because what you don't want is somebody come to hurt your daughter,
That's it.
or start something and
Start
then
beating
break
her
it up.
and
And
I mean, she can get pregnant with 2 kids, and then the man just gets up and walks.
yeah, exactly.
Then had complicated her life
Yes.
and just.
So that conviction is very important.
So
Well,
that-
we need to wrap up. Our time is so up tonight. We need to wrap up for tonight. But next week, we're going to, air the follow-up on this conversation, because the conversation is still on. We're still talking pre-wedding. So we're going to get to the wedding, and then after the wedding, and then 21 years of the journey
Post-wedding.
together. Maybe you can do another edition, or even 2 more as the conversation progresses. But thank you for hanging with us tonight. A big thank you to our guest, Dr. Stanley Orji,
Thanks for
and
having
his
us.
dear wife, Dr. Eloha Orji. Your story has been very inspiring.
God be
I
praised.
want to say to you out there, if you've watched this and you do have questions, or you are in a similar situation, or something that they have said resonates with where you are now, you want to send us a question, a number is coming up on the screen. Please send your question to that number. It's a WhatsApp number. Send it, and then we will address it, and we'll find a way. Either we do it on a public show like this, or we answer you privately. But we'd like to hear from you if this has blessed you. If you do have any questions for the couple, or questions for all 3 of us, please feel free to send your questions. And thank you once again, Dr. Stanley.
Thank
and
you,
Dr.
Pastor.
Eloha, for
Thank you.
being our guest on tonight's show of Thank God It's Friday. We'll continue next week. This conversation continues. God bless you. Good night. Enjoy the weekend. Thoroughly enjoy this weekend. Good night. Bye-bye.